The election season is officially over. Congrats if your party won, apologies if your party lost. It has by far been the most exciting election season I've ever seen in my life, from voter turnout to social media involvement, and then, of course, fact checking political claims. So now that the election is over and we go back to normal life, the question starts to become now what? What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Men the Podcast, where we empower your narratives. I am your co-host, Jacob Hale, and I wanted to sit here and talk a little bit about after the election because everyone had their live stream, everyone had their predictions, everyone wanted to talk about, who's going to win, who's going to lose, and everything. And I want to talk about the bigger pictures that now that the election cycle is over, now what do we do? As always, go ahead and like, comment, subscribe, check out our other videos, and write down in the comments, let me know, what do you think about politics today? Give me the good, the bad, and of course the hopeful, because there actually is a lot to be hopeful about. Also, stick around until the end because I have a very special message and a challenge to the audience. The point of this video is to discuss, now that the election is over, what are we supposed to do now? Well, in answering that question, let's observe the election cycle as a whole, and let's talk about the good and the bad that has come this time around. First, let's start with the good. And I would say social media is definitely getting put in the good category for this election cycle. The prominence of social media to become an actual source of reliable media, it was beautiful. It was very nice to see. Now, I know what you're going to say in the comments. Let me be clear right now. There was a ton of fake news on social media. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like it wasn't. There was a lot, but the ability to have on the spot video recording, on the spot comments, on the spot fact checking, not only from political parties, but within our own discord on social media was absolutely phenomenal to see. And when people think about the positives of social media, that comes with it. The biggest tool that we have as Americans is to be aware. And for us to use technology in such a positive light to hold our own selves accountable and make sure we have as much information as we need to make a formal decision was a positive, no matter how much fake AI, whatever you want to say, was actually out there. This actually leads me to my second thing, which is podcasts. We are a podcast, so of course I'm biased, but I would give podcasts an A plus plus for what they've done for this entire election cycle and the way they capitalize on all of this attention. It's funny, but podcasters were able to give us the most fair, unbiased perspective from both parties. Even if a podcast is scripted, or a podcaster wasn't tough in their examination of the candidate, their platform as a whole made it a lot clearer from an audience perspective of what we think about the particular candidate. Hearing one candidate not even talk about politics, but just talk about their life and things that they go through and hobbies and everything of that nature is just as important as you sitting down and asking them about their economic policy or something like that. I think going forward, podcasts are definitely going to be prominent in not just major presidential elections, but I think it's finally going to it's going to eventually trickle down into local elections as well. I think you're going to see judges trying to get reelected, governors, everything of the sorts starting to hop on podcasts is just to get their name out there, whether it's locally for podcast station in a certain state or on a bigger scheme if they're trying to get a bill passed or anything of that nature. Now, with that being said, let's be critical about the bad stuff that I've seen. Now, when I say bad, take it as constructive criticism. You don't have to agree. You're more than welcome to disagree. You're more than welcome to get in the comments and let me know that you disagree. I welcome that as well. But not everything was good, so I should at least be fair and point out some of the bad things that I have seen during this whole election cycle. Now, one thing to point out, again, we are not a political channel, so I'm not going to sit here and discuss policies or what a particular candidate said. I'm going to think outside of the realm of the two candidates and the two political parties. The first group of people that I want to point out is actually the American people, including myself. At some point as a collective, we need to decide that having a difference in political views shouldn't warrant the end of a friendship or the splitting of a family. There are people that have been friends for years, couples that were going to get married and ended everything because of a difference in politics. I think there's simplicity in being around people that think like you, but the fabric of our country is the idea that we can have different viewpoints but still love each other as fellow citizens. Now, personally for me, I don't care what side of the aisle you stand by politically. If this is how you are as a person, then I would just personally recommend that you try to change that. There's nothing wrong with having a different viewpoint. If you live your life thinking that everyone should think the exact same way you do, it's only going to lead to frustration. While on that, let me say this. When it comes to politics, it's way too easy to look at an opposing view and call them dumb. Challenge yourself or educate yourself to at least get an understanding of why a person's viewpoint is in a particular way. The second group that I would say is subject to criticism, I would say, is news media. Here's my take on news media. I don't actually mind if a news media outlet station is biased. That's perfectly fine. What I do mind is that when a news media outlet is biased and then tries to convince you that they're neutral. I think the best way to break this down is identifying the difference between news media and sports media. Sports media, what makes sports media good is the fact that sports media gives a certain realm of information, but there are clear personalities in sports media, and that's what you tend to gravitate towards. So there's certain announcers that give you information, but they're clearly biased, and that's part of the personality. And that's entertainment. News media shouldn't be about personalities. There is an element of entertainment. I can't say that that shouldn't exist, but information should be ahead of just entertaining people. And I think that's where news media has gotten it wrong for this election cycle. There's something to say where normal social media, whether you would say the Twitters, the Facebooks, the YouTubes of the world, is bringing out more reliable information than a news media. And it's not like the news media doesn't have the information. They just decide that they're going more of an entertainment route than it is giving factual driven data. And again, when I say this, I mean this for both sides. This isn't directed towards a certain group. I think it's all media in general has this particular issue right now. So if you're still listening to this point, actually, here's $1 million idea that I'll just give you. Um, Form a news outlet that is 100% neutral. And how do you do that? You have to give unbiased information and put it in a position to where the audience is supposed to make their own decisions based off of the information that you are given. So when it comes to news media, I'll break it down even further. I'll put it into three parts on what I think they can do better. That'd be a lot better. I don't think it's constructive to forcibly try to create clips or edit clips in a certain way to force a narrative. I would challenge anyone for both sides, both candidates that either you liked or didn't like, right? Find a bunch of clips of them and then extend the clip out 15 seconds before, 15 seconds after, and then rewatch the clip. And then you'll realize a lot of the clips that you were given had a completely different narrative if you just listen to it slightly longer within the proper context. The second thing, I don't think a lot of people are mentioning this, but it's just something I've noticed is over reporting on information. I think it's a little over reporting when you have one one story, one piece of a story that you're dragging the entire day and you have 10 to 15 reporters that are reporting the exact same thing in the exact same way, and then you go to different news outlets and they're also reporting the exact same thing in the exact same way. This is where the beauty of YouTube has actually come into play with this, to where YouTube, you will have people that will report on the exact same thing that's happening, but they do such a great job of putting it into their own channel's theme, their own spin on it, to where it's actually very entertaining to watch and it's very subjective to watch. When you have 10 to 15 reporters on the exact same platform reporting the same thing, or do you have one channel reporting on the exact same thing and making 5, 6, 7 videos a day on the exact same thing. It gets so repetitive, it just creates fatigue as the audience. Going in and thinking every single thing, every single day of the election is make or break, it's just not realistic. And trying to create media as such, I think it's to the detriment of the audience and to the people that actually want to learn more and stay up to date on things that are going on. And the last thing I will say is interview formats. The particular podcaster seems to have done a better job of not showing their personal feelings towards the question as they're asking the question. So if you rewatch some interviews, there's plenty of interviews that you'll watch where the interviewer's personality just comes out in the middle of the question. So if you're in an interview with someone and the person across from you is already against you, that doesn't make for a good interview. It makes it very combative. I think a lot of viewers, well, I can at least speak for myself. I think a lot of viewers will really enjoy an interviewer that was just completely neutral. Well, now that you stay till the end, I will give you my special message and my challenge to you guys. As I close out this video, I would encourage everyone that our attention to politicians shouldn't end after election day. I think everyone that voted in the presidential election, more importantly, taking the time and actually voting in the local elections as well. And I would just encourage you guys, from a younger audience, if you're older, whatever, just stay informed, stay involved. Whatever the thousands of promises every politician has given us during this election cycle, hold them to it. I think that's one of the most powerful things we can do as American citizens is that we give them the power, but we can also take it away if we feel like they're misusing that power. And there's misusing that power if they're not doing the things that we wanted them to do, which got them voted in the first place. So I would say, as the American citizen, stay vigilant in a positive way. It doesn't have to be negative, but stay vigilant. As in, if you feel like this candidate isn't doing what you would like them to do, you're more than welcome to vote them out in the next election cycle, and that's encouraged. But with that being said, I'm gonna close out this video. I want to thank you guys for tuning in, checking this amazing stuff out. We got so much more stuff coming in the future, but in terms of politics, I think we're good for this channel. I think we're all good. With that being said, thank you guys for tuning in, and of course, we'll see you in the next one.